An innate part of human beings' nature is to kind of tell its story and to scratch and carve and engrave, leave a mark in a place that isn't a kind of conventional space, not a kind of typical surface that you would leave your mark. Is, I feel, an innate part of our nature. Human beings forever want to kind of carve and scratch and scribble into an unconventional space, a space that others might stumble across one day. This desire to communicate to the public, to the masses, to the people, it's innate, it's part of our nature to leave our mark. Human beings like to say, I exist, I am here, this is me, this is my voice. I think it's kind of ingrained within us as human beings. People like to be heard. And when they're not heard, they begin to cry out. And there's no better way to do so than to leave a mark that someone might stumble across later. Perhaps generations later, perhaps civilizations later, perhaps hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later, thousands of years later. People will one day look at these markings and say, who were these people? What was their condition? What was their narrative? Coming to Lebanon, immersing myself in people's stories, in their communities, in their environments, listening to people, going into their buildings and the places where they gather. Just like how you might eat in a restaurant that's a local restaurant rather than go to that fine dining restaurant that tourists go to. Seeking out the places where you know where there is the real kind of real people and the real stories exist. Before coming to Beirut, I didn't really have any expectations. I kind of came out here almost as like a blank canvas, really. As an artist, I just felt this journey would take me wherever it takes me, and how I would respond. Again, I just felt I would be guided by the people I meet, the places I visit, and nothing was really defined. And that's the way I preferred it, and that's the way I, as a storyteller, that's the way it should be. I didn't really want to kind of make too many judgments beforehand. I didn't want to come here and define my path and actually let the experience define where I go. Although my father, who was a migrant to the UK, moved for economic reasons, for benefit of bringing his family up and making an income to survive, I can't imagine what it's like for people who might have left their homes out of fear for their lives, of their homes being destroyed and bombs dropping. This is almost incomprehensible. What is it like to kind of leave, your home behind, your loved ones even, in that condition? Basically, I'd like to know what details, just how we came about being in Lebanon and the journey here from Syria, and just to tell as much detail as you can about that. I'd like to hear and be interested.
جيت على لبنان فترة الحرب اللي صارت عنا بسوريا. أنا من مدينة حمص بسوريا، وأول الأحداث صارت عنا بسوريا صارت تقريبا بحمص. تهجرنا لمدينة حلب، من حمص لحلب، بعدين ما صار كمان الحرب هنيك بحلب وتهجرنا بال 2012 بشهر التاسع. أنا جيت لهون على لبنان ظرف الحرب.
So how was life been since that, since what he was used to in back home, and now he's here? I mean, is he happy with being here?
اختلفت الحياة. كنا قاعدين، أنا كان عندي محل بسوريا بحمص، وكنت عم اشتغل وماشي حالي يعني، وكان عندي بيت، وكنت متزوج جديد، وبيتي كنت عم زاوي شوي شوي يعني ملكيا. بعدين جينا لهون على لبنان. بالنسبة للوضع بلبنان، يعني أول ما جيت على لبنان لقينا شغل وكان ماشي حالنا شوي، وتلقينا مساعدات من الجمعيات، من الإغاثات، من الأمم. بعدين بعد فترة شي سنة ونص، سنتين، من 2012 بال 2014 يعني ضاقت علينا شوي هون المساعدات، ضاق علينا هون الشغل. صار يعني، وأنا إلي أخوي هون يعني شوي عم يساعدوني.
Can I ask him, I mean, how many children he has and how old they are, and how does, as a father, I'm a father myself, so how does he manage or cope? How does he feel about bringing up children in a situation where he feels like he's struggling?
أنا بشتغل كل شيء بيختص بالخشب، يعني من ديكورات، من غرف نوم، من أبواب شبابيك، كل شيء بيختص بالخشب أنا بشتغل فيه. أنا عندي 3 أولاد، مصطفى، مؤمن، وأصغرهم عمر، أعمارهم 12 سنة و10 سنين و7 سنين. صعب تربية الأولاد يعني، خاصة الذكور، وهي أمهم بتساعدني فيهم يعني كتير، إلى الدور الأكبر بتربية الأولاد. أنا كل ما هنالك يعني أنا بكون برات البيت، بس صير جوات البيت يعني تصير مسؤوليتي. برات البيت بتكون هي مستلمتهم يعني للأولاد. يعني بالعمر 10 سنين بصير بيعذب الولد شوي هون، بده أشياء يعني بجوز ما نكون نحن ما نقدر نجيب له إياها، أو ما نأمن له طلبه يعني. هو والولد يعني بهالفترة ما بيقدر إنه هذا الطلب إنه بدي يتأمن، هو بده الطلب تبعه خلاص، بده طلبه يتأمن. بهالفترة بس هيك بيعذبونا شوي الأولاد. أكيد بالنسبة للأولاد يعني يعني حقهم الطبيعي، حقهم الشرعي إنه يلعبوا، يعني ما بس بالنسبة للطفل السوري، بالنسبة لكل جميع الأطفال يعني حقهم الشرعي إنه النشاطات الترفيهية، اللعب، حقهم إنه يلعبوا يعني.
So, the center that your children go to, can you talk to me about the purpose that it serves? And we spoke about, you mentioned about your children having fun. Could you talk about the purpose of the center and what it does for your children?
بالنسبة للولد يعني لازم يكون عنده ما وقت كل وقته يكون دراسي، أو يكون كل وقته خلص بس كتابي، أو لا، لازم الولد يكون عنده ساعات فراغية يقضيها بالنشاطات الترفيهية، أو لعب، أو رياضات، أو
Do your children, and not just your children, but yourself, I mean, do you miss home?
أكيد ما حدا ما بيشتاق لبلده يعني، وعطول منشجعهم نحن للأطفال يعني إنه بدنا نرجع على بلدنا، وإن شاء الله بدنا نرجع على بلدنا وعلى بيوتنا، وعطول الترغيب يعني من التذكير والترغيب إنه نرجع للبلد يعني.
So even though you hear what's going on and the situation over there, you really see yourself going back?
أكيد يعني رغم الظروف ورغم المآسي اللي بدنا نقضيها، يعني بالآخر قد من طال الحال بدنا نرجع للبلد يعني، نرجع لبلدنا يعني. هلا نحن أنا وقت اللي طلعت أنا وعيلتي وأهلي، طلعنا تحت قصف الطيران، كان بحمص. طلعنا تحت القصف، طلعنا على حلب، وما طالعنا من حلب يعني جينا على لبنان إلا الطيران اللي كان قصف يعني ودمار حوالينا، وتركنا أغراضنا، طلعنا بس بأواعينا وطلعنا على لبنان. هذا اللي طلعنا تحت القصف، يعني طلعنا، ما طلعنا بإرادتنا.
Going into the center and kind of feeling the buzz of the center and hearing about the work they do, I felt, quite drawn to what they were doing. They were bringing these different communities together. There were some serious problems in terms of the kind of different communities and the way the schools were set up. They were all very segregated. And I felt like these are the kids that I want to serve. I want the art to be something that they could see every single day.
The children here are of three nationalities: Syrian, Palestinian, and Lebanese. And they have, they are coming from a background of conflict, in addition to violence, in addition to many miserable conditions they are living at their homes. And so they lack support. And we try to work on social cohesion between these three nationalities. So when they come here to the center, we have two programs: the active learning and the psychosocial support. In the active learning, we teach the 4 subjects: math, science, English, and Arabic. In the psychosocial support, we have the music room, theater, storytelling, and the arts. So we try to group them into active learning and the PSS activities. These children are coming from, a non-supportive environment, and they are living in a conflict and having violence in their background. So when they come here to the center, it is like, some place to expose all these feelings, these hidden feelings that no one could listen to them. So the activators here try to take out these feelings and implement them in a good way. Like, we try to move their perspective from being violent and having all these conflict into a place where they could express their feeling in a better way, to be a better person and to improve their lives. So we try to, take these feelings out by the art activities, or to express their feelings in the way they like to express it, either art or theater or music, so they could take out these feelings in a good way.
From your experience with the kids, how important is the arts in encouraging them to express themselves and maybe deal with some of the issues that they're going through?
In their homes, they have no one to listen to them. So arts at some place work like they have something just to talk with. It's either by listening to music, it's either by writing, it's either by drawing. And sometimes we draw our fears, we draw everything that we can't speak it out, just we write it on the paper. So art, I guess, it's a very good way to express their feelings, and instead of shouting and hitting other kids and, communicating in a violent way. So they had the chance to draw it, to say it in the paper.
What you're saying is, how would you argue the need for the arts when they may have so many other issues around, money, etc., and all of this?
Okay.
Why the arts?
Because if I have instability in my mind, so I can't think, so I can't solve these conflicts. So if I had the art, the place where I could put these instabilities on the paper and then to think about these conflicts, so I could reach the solution. So that's how we could deal with things.
Initially, of course, I was thinking of finding something on the streets around the building. But then when they showed me the storytelling room, where the kids go into this room, it was almost like this magical room where they tell stories. And I just suddenly felt, drawn to that room where, You know, we were talking about who we are as human beings through the books that we read. And I thought that's where I wanted to place the art. The walls were very bare, and I thought if I can enhance that environment that children sit in every day, these bare walls, and transform them and actually bring some color into the room. And not just something of color, but something that they may reflect on, perhaps the message, perhaps the imagery that might make them ponder. Create that kind of almost Zen, I hope, of this art that kind of hits them as soon as they walk into the room. I run an arts organization, and it's about kind of nurturing creativity and complementing our lives with creativity. And without that, you know, the world would be a dark place, and we must place at the heart that space for us to release and express ourselves. Because in any society, never mind people who've just, you know, never mind people who are suffering internally and have been through trauma and pain and seen horrible things. In any society, if people don't release or have a channel to express themselves, that's dangerous for any society. We create a kind of an imbalanced society if we don't nurture and look at kind of growing human beings. So what I was particularly drawn to was the center being a kind of complementary space. The fact that it wasn't just about a teaching and educational space, but it was about developing these children and giving them skills that perhaps will kind of help them fly. When I create art, making it resonate with people is crucial for me. Otherwise, it's just wallpaper decoration, just eye candy. And creating something that strikes a chord, that connects with people here, that instills a certain feeling or an emotion that makes them connect with it truly. If my art doesn't have that, then I question what's the point. I would say, what's the point? I've come here on this journey to create something that is beyond just wallpaper decoration. I have to challenge myself. I ask the questions to myself regularly. What change are you really making? So, rooting within the art something that might be something very subtle, or not even something that's very obvious, but something that very subtle that just makes that little connection, that makes someone see themselves in the art, sees their place, their home, and that says, that talks to me, is crucial to me. I'm all for creating spaces that nurture and develop as human beings. I don't think society allows for that enough, you know, where you might develop kind of, you know, skills of you know, basic skills that I suppose sometimes are neglected, and it might be kind of developing us creatively. You know, that's something I'm very keen on, and I'm a big advocate for, about how do we place the arts at the center. It's all good kind of having maths, English, science and ticking those boxes, but actually there's important kind of life skills and creativity for me is a part of that. It's about nurturing the brain to be able to respond to unique situations in alternative ways. Problem solving, dealing with problems, but actually being able to just think differently. And I think the teachers and the staff, and even some of the parents, that the centre was creating a kind of an alternative space that was complementary to the schools and the typical spaces we have. And for me, that's really, really important. You know, if I've done nothing else on this trip, then I hope that just by bringing a splash of colour into the lives of these children has made a difference.